Good afternoon. So my name is Dijkstra. I'm from the Netherlands and I work for the Dutch Research Council. It's what we call it in short. But to be honest, about 15 minutes ago I was thinking, I think I'm living in the Czech Republic. Because I recognize the questions and I also recognize the answers, unfortunately. But that was the negative thing. Let's try and also say something positive. In the Netherlands we did have quite a big dedicated program for language and speech technology, which was called Stevin. It was, I think, an excellent example of having a really big program in a small country. Or, to be honest, it was in two countries, because this was a Dutch-Flemish program. It was funded jointly by ministries, both in the Netherlands and in Flanders, and by the councils in the Netherlands and in Flanders. We had 12 million euros for a couple of years, about 6 years to spend it. And it was spent mainly on improving the basic language infrastructure for the Dutch language. It was used for strategic fundamental research. It was used for application-oriented research, for demonstration projects, and finally we also had some accompanying measures like organizing workshops, organizing conferences, or co-funding conferences that were already organized. The program was managed by a consortium of organizations which were NWO, Agentschap NL and the Dutch Language Union. And I think it was quite a big success. And if you want to know more about the results of the program, the website is still there. Under the Language Union you can actually find the Stevin program, and there's lots of information in there. And some of it is actually in English, but most of course in Dutch. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a successor program. This was quite a disappointment, I think, for many of the researchers and developers and people that integrate with language technology. But at the moment, this is not something that's feasible. There is still a policy on language technology, mind you. Policy is there. The problem is the implementation, which is the money. And as one of my former bosses once explained to me, if you have a policy without implementation, it's hallucination. And that's what seemed to happen. If I sort of zoom into the NWO policies, and they were the ones that used to fund HLT research in a dedicated program, then you can see that the kind of issues that we have to focus on are not very theme-specific. This is more about talents, this is about socially inspired themes, and HLT of course is not a socially inspired theme. Infrastructures, institutes, that's where quite a large amount of funding goes to, international cooperation and some other smaller things. You can also see from these budget figures that the budget is actually decreasing. And it will be decreasing more in the next few years. Don't we have a strategy? Yes, we still have one. Our Dutch government, and it was actually the Department of Economic Affairs first of all, devised this absolutely great, don't mind the term, strategy of defining 9 top sectors. So we now have 9 top sectors that we have to put most of our funding in. So these are the agribusiness and food, it's called horticulture and propagation materials, high-tech, energy, logistics, creative industry, life sciences and health, chemicals and water. And again, as you can see, there's no human language technologies in there. There were 2 horizontal themes added, some smaller ones. There's an ICT theme, for which there's not much money yet, actually. And there's a social infrastructure agenda, which is more about economics and only holds about 2 million euros, I think. So are there no possibilities for HLT funding? And should I repeat what my Czech colleague said? No, that's not true either. There is HLT funding, but it's not for HLT. It is for something which has what I call HLT inside. So at the moment, if you want to sell HLT, you've got to package it into something else. And this is what has been done in recent years. So what are the kind of funding opportunities where you can actually, in the right way, package your HLT proposal? You can go into the talent funding, as we call it, which is for talented young or more senior scholars. You can go into the open competition, especially at NWO in the humanities section. There are still some societally inspired themes or top sectors, so you could actually package it as a creative industry proposal. Or there's another one that we have is the CATCH program, which is continuous access for cultural heritage. Mainly you can actually sell it as infrastructure. And mind you, lots of infrastructure require research, so that's not such a problem. And then finally, we do have an NWO-funded e-science centre, which funds all kinds of e-research in every discipline. And there is from the Royal Academy an e-humanities programme. So now the main question is, of course, have HLT researchers secured funding in the Netherlands lately? And I would say yes, they have. As a result of the S3 roadmap, we also had the Dutch roadmap, and there the Karen people, the Dutch Karen NL people, were very successful. They secured over 9 million euros. In the second call, where they collaborated with the area, they secured another 1 million. And just last week, we had the NWO big infrastructure call. Another project was successful, which contains, again, HLT research, and which is called the Nederlab. And that was another 2 million euros. So if you add that up, it's not too bad, actually. And in addition, there's actually some of the other funding instruments I named that also have funded some HLT researchers. Finally, I want to say, before saying thank you, maybe there's something to say about where funding in the future might be secured. First of all, I'm quite sure that in the Netherlands it will remain, most of all, infrastructures. Infrastructures is quite popular in government because it's a rather straightforward call. You can easily determine which proposals are the best, and money gets out of the building, as we call it, pretty quickly. We can just give them the money and do it. And that's something that governments at the moment seem to like. Sometimes get rid of the funding, because if you don't spend it, you also have problems. Secondly, I think for as long as the top sectors are lasting, there will be some possibilities in the creative industries and maybe also in some of the other top sectors. Mind you, again, Ollie Rehn last week, or 2 weeks ago, actually wrote in Research Europe that the Dutch top sectors are going to be completely ineffective, and if there's any effect, it can't be measured. So maybe, possibly, they'll be dead in 2 years' time. Finally, I think there's going to be one more opportunity, maybe, but that's in discussion. I know that the ministry is still considering digitization projects, but they'll be mostly in the cultural heritage area. So I know they're considering doing something within the context of the GPI cultural heritage, but that's not finalized yet. And then maybe finally, and that's going to be more like collaboration between countries, there's going to be new possibilities for Eranet Plus in Horizon 2020. And the latest news has it that because the Commission likes scale and scope, they're going to consider increasing the top-up of that funding to 50%. So it means that if countries collaborate on this, put in that national funding, then it might actually be an incentive for the national funding agency to put in money in a kind of joint pot, because the Commission would then add to it. But that would also require some activities from the field to make sure that such an Eranet Plus possibility gets inserted in one of the work programs. So that would be it for me for the moment. Thank you very much.